I noted several times before the importance of a CEO as the engine of profits. One CEO, Chief Executive Officer, is not like another, just like one racehorse is not like another. They may look the same, but some win and some don't. That's why it is so important to get to know the corporate leaders. But how can you? Even big institutions who hold millions of shares or analysts who can make or break the stock get limited time with a CEO, a CFO, and the rest of the C-suite. So how can you, small sleuth investor that you are, get a handle on how good or how bad the CEO and his or her lieutenants really are? In a word, ask. Ask who? Their people. That's who. Employees and middle managers gossip like mad all the time about their bosses. They have to, because those honchos upstairs can make their careers or break them, promote them or fire them. So employees often obsess about what the top guys or girls are really like or up to. So anytime you have a chance to talk to employees of a company whose stock is on your radar, my advice is ask them the following two questions. First question, what do you and your co-workers really think of your boss or bosses? Are they good or are they bad? And if so, why? You'll be surprised what they'll tell you if you ask for their opinion, because so very few people do ask. Then, the second question, if you were the top boss, what would you do differently than the boss does and why? This question is often key because employees know more than any outsider, analysts included, about what goes in the company, which pay their mortgages and their kids' orthodontist bills. That's why, in the company cafeteria or around the water cooler, employees often gossip obsessively about Mr. or Mrs. Big and give their own opinions about what they did right and what they did wrong. And that's what you want to know. Now, mind, you don't want to know anything illegal like new contracts or lost sales or other privileged information. You just want to know what employees think of the boss or bosses. Let me give you 3 examples where it helped me, where it didn't matter, and where I missed. First example, in a medium-sized US conglomerate whose stock I owned, I got to chat with the secretaries in the annual meeting and ask them question 1. What do they think of the boss? Several giggled nervously and said that the CEO had what they call long hands, that is, hands that went roving, what you'd call today a Me Too problem. I filed it in memory, then asked the waitresses in the classy restaurant across the company's headquarters in the plaza where the top brass ate. Yes, they said, Mr. Big indeed sent his hands roving there too. The waitresses only wished they had worked for the company because then they could be bought out too. Bought out? Too? I asked. How? When? Who? Well, I then learned that Mr. Big allegedly had affairs with 3 secretaries, most of them not exactly willing, and the directors paid them off because Mr. Big was seen as a financial genius. But the directors told him, 1 more such monkey business and you are gone. Well, he did 1 more, so the director said, you are out. He said, no, I'll divorce my wife and marry the 4th. And he did. It cost him tens of millions, but it didn't matter. He was out. So why does it matter to a corporate sleuth investor like me? Because the genius Mr. Big had lots of off-balance sheet financing with which the then CFO was not exactly familiar. But the CFO was familiar with Mr. Big's long hands, so the board had to make the CFO into the new CEO, or he would leak the long hands business to the New York Times, which the board knew. Well, the CFO did become the new chief, but it took him almost 2 years to learn what really went on offshore, at which point the company had a whopping write-off. And during these 2 years, the stock, what do you think? Tanked. Luckily, I had sold soon after I talked to the waitresses. Now you may ask, did Wall Street analysts know about the former CEO's monkey business? Some did, some didn't. Was it material? Darn tooting it was, in my opinion, especially how it may have influenced leadership succession. Did any of the analysts warn their clients? Of course not. It was gossip, not financial analysis. So, but wasn't the gossip material? In my opinion, it sure was. And so it is in many other such cases, which is why you should never discard it before thinking about it. Second case, this one in Canada. The CEO of an old-line Canadian company, a woman, early 40s, had a habit of hiring good-looking younger men as assistants for acquisitions, then often giving them a share in some real estate investment she was making privately, and eventually making some of them her boy toys. None of this men lasted more than 2 or 3 years before moving on, and only one complained mildly but was bought out with a higher bonus. On the surface, the situation was similar, but maybe not really. In the first case, there was clearly an abuse of position of power. In the second, arguably more willingness on the part of the so-called victims, whose work status was much higher than a secretary and had much bigger options and much higher pay. Or was it that different? You may have a different opinion, and you may be right, or maybe not, because unlike the US conglomerate, that Canadian company kept doing well, and so did its stock. And yes, in both cases, I kept my mouth shut. And when I heard of them, they were already history. Sure, if I'm asked for help, that's another matter. Then I'd alert the board. But in none of these, I was asked for help. In both cases, the board was in the know. Now for a third and last case. This one relates to an American company, General Motors. If you had seen the movie Roger and Me by Michael Moore, you would know just how bad things were in the old GM, which was run by accountants who lost half the business to the Japanese because they couldn't think fast enough. Well, after the all incompetents were sent packing, in came a young new chief executive officer, Mary Barra, yes, a Stanford Graduate School of Business grad. I foolishly thought GM was hopeless. Yet I was curious and asked about her among GM people I knew. What do you think of her? I got good reviews. Well, I thought, again foolishly, compared to the terrible fast, everything would be an improvement. But the opinions I got from GM employees about the new CEO only kept getting better as time went on. The new CEO fixed problems, did several right things, was cool under pressure, even told President Trump off when he pushed her to do something that was not right for the company. What I liked especially was the report that when she was asked about the first concern, she said, speed. Do things fast and decide faster, because our competition sure won't wait. Very unlike the old GM. So, you may ask, did I buy the stock? No, I missed it. Because, as I said, I thought that no matter how good the new CEO was, the legacy of past foolishness would take too long to fix. I was, of course, wrong. As bad as things were in the old GM, they were getting better daily. The stock is 4 times over the last 10 years, more than 4 at the same time, and over the last year, since the bottom of the last COVID crisis, since that market bottom, it again outperformed both Ford and the Dow. What of the future? It may do well in the future too, although yes, it's so big that it could be hard for it to outperform the market. Or would it? Don't forget, I was wrong about it before. To sum up, the opinion of the troops about their generals matters a lot. So do the opinion of employees about their boss or bosses. Most investors stay in the offices and don't even bother to ask them. It's considered gossip. I disagree. Gossip by company employees can give you an edge if you learn to separate the important parts from the irrelevant. That's all for today. Please let me know in a comment below what you think of the above, and if you like it, which I do, which I hope you do, please subscribe and tell all your friends so they subscribe too. I'll see you next time, and meantime, thank you very much for watching.